Welcome to the Killer Boobies podcast, Unraveling Breast Implant Illness. Here's your hosts, Wendy Bunnell, Leslie Smoot, and Brandy Vega. Welcome to the Killer Boobies podcast. I have in studio today the very beautiful Carrie Dyjak. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, wonderful. And you know what's interesting is she is my fourth interview in Florida. And so I'm starting to think this is a sign that I myself need to go to Florida because apparently it's calling me and there are people there that I need to meet in person. Would you not agree, Carrie?
Absolutely. And plus, do you think that because it's the sunnier environment that maybe all of us women feel that we needed to have breast implants, more down here than more up north? I don't know.
Well, I think the beach is calling me. My girlfriends are calling me.
I'm calling you.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on down.
Like you said, we'll have the Killer Boobies, we'll have some sort of beach party. I think that would be awesome. So We're going to plan that after this. And anyways, so Carrie, thank you so much for being on the show. And I am really interested and excited about hearing your story because it has encompassed over 2 decades. And so why don't you just start off by introducing who you are and sharing with us a little piece of you and your story.
Yeah, well, as you've already said, my name is Carrie Dyjak, and I currently live in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I've been married for 8 years, and we have 3 kitty cats. And I have been, working in the pharmaceutical industry for the last 15 years. I was a chemist for 12 of that, and now I've kind of migrated out, and I am now just like a technical writer.
That's awesome. So interesting that you would be in the chemical field and in the pharmaceutical industry. And so you have worked with chemicals. Am I safe to assume that?
Oh, yes. I've dealt with a lot of very hazardous organic solvents, acetonitrile, methanol, hexane, acids.
Wow. And yet you decided originally to get breast implants in, a couple of decades ago, right? Didn't you?
I had just turned 20. It was like 6 weeks after my 20th birthday.
Wow. So you're young. You didn't know.
I was young. I mean, this is in the 90s, and, Pamela Anderson and, Carmen Electra, these images were just in your face. Everybody, ooh, this is what was deemed beautiful and sexy. And, and then at, my late teens and, right around 20, I was like, I don't really fit in. And so some of the girls, I was, working at a restaurant on Panama City Beach, and a lot of the girls had started getting breast implants. And I'm sitting there thinking they cost like thousands and thousands of dollars. And I had asked them, and they were at the time, they were only $2,350.
And you're sure, let's get them.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, really? So I called, made a consultation, and I didn't even tell my parents because they live in another state, which was, now that I'm an adult, that is not smart. And I got them done June of 1996.
Wow. So
they were Mentor saline.
Okay, Mentor saline. So a lot of individuals think, oh, if they're saline and they're smooth, you're out of the woods. You're totally good.
No, that's so ridiculous. The saline is just a filling, but you're not thinking about the harmful chemical inundated shell that encases it, which that is what our body is exposed to.
Yeah. So take us on this ride and this journey. I want to hear how things progressed. And when you started to notice symptoms, when you started to notice that there was a shift and that there was something that wasn't going on that was correct or right.
Now, coincidentally, I did not know this at the time, but now when I really look back, my symptoms started 8 weeks after I got my first set of implants.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I just couldn't get out of bed. I'm pretty sure I was in school at the time, I was so tired. I just could not. And I had like a really weird case of depression, like almost scary depression. Now, mind you, my mother did not know I had had this surgery, but I was very concerned about how I felt. So I called my mother and I said, hey, I'm just not liking how I feel, because, depression had kind of run in the family and I was kind of looking for advice. And she said, oh, yeah, why don't you go talk to someone? So I had gone, to talk to somebody, like a psychologist. And I had just said, hey, I just had this surgery, it's something I've always wanted. And I don't understand why I feel like this. I should be really happy. And she was like, when was your surgery? And I had told her that I'd been right around 8 weeks. She said, well, you know what? Some people have post-anesthetic depression. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that can go 6 to 8 weeks after surgery. So why don't you give it some more time and come back and see me if you don't, if things don't, get better. So at 20 years old, I was like, yes, I am not crazy.
Yeah.
And life went on. And I do kind of remember some kind of emotional situations with friends moving on. Like, I would just be emotional, or I'd be like tired. And I think I even got called a hypochondriac one time, and it was just like, so I'm thinking about these weird things. And then like around 9 years in, I was studying for finals for college and I started getting some really intense back pain just on my right-hand side. And I was thinking, oh, it's because I'm sitting too much. I'm studying for finals. And then it would just kind of go away. And then at the 10-year mark, extreme insomnia happened. And I did not sleep for 8 years. I would only get about 3 to 4 hours of broken sleep. And now I realize now that was the first sign that my adrenals were starting to take a hit.
Yeah. And I can so empathize with not being able to sleep and insomnia.
Oh, terrible.
Sister, I can't even imagine 8 years because I dealt with it for about a year, and literally it makes you feel crazy. It makes you feel like you're absolutely falling off the cliff, that you're absolutely nuts, because you're supposed to be regenerating that during that time. You're supposed to be replenishing your energy. You're taking from this empty vessel every single day because you didn't get anything to replenish or refill the night before. And it starts to just compound that effect. And I'm certain that also intensified your symptoms as well, because if your body can't renew itself,
right,
you're on a slippery slope, right?
Yeah, you know what? I had gone to a seminar probably like back in March, and he was kind of touching on that, and he was saying that like when you're sleeping, that's also your way of is when your body detoxes. So if I don't sleep, can you imagine how toxic I had become? Like, yes, I understand that I have toxic breast implants, but that probably didn't help any matters either because I'm not healing, because I wasn't sleeping.
Right. But you didn't know this at the time.
No. My mom has issues sleeping, and I had just thought like, oh, well, my mom doesn't sleep. So guess what? I'm still going to get up and I'm still going to kickbox 5 days a week, and I'm still going to go out with my friends, and I'm going to go hang out at the beach on the weekends, like, I'm not going to let that bother me. And that's the lifestyle I continued, to live. So it hadn't affected my body yet. So from the outside, I looked like the epitome of health, but I did not realize that things were kind of starting to shut down internally. So I didn't realize I wasn't healthy when I went to go replace my implant. And now I realize just that surgery alone could have taken me out.
So tell me why you chose to replace your implants. What was the purpose and what was the decision behind that?
They were 15 years old. At the time I had, lost a lot of weight. I had gotten like really lean. I could feel all the, ripples with the saline implant. And, I was just like, they're 15 years old. I'm just going to go ahead and just, replace them. And I had chosen, to go quite a bit bigger. And later on, that was one of the biggest mistakes I could have ever made. And shortly after that, I did realize that, you know, the breathing got a lot worse, more pressure, you know, but like I said, I didn't know any of this. But yeah, I had just, no, I wasn't having any issues, you know, that I knew of at the time. I just replaced them because, you know, they were 15 years old and they're not a lifelong device, and that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, you're smart, because a lot of women don't take that advice and they will keep their implants indefinitely, you know, so you were trying to make an informed and good choice, right? But now you get the second set in, and take us to the next step. You're starting to get more symptoms, aren't you?
So within 6 months,
yeah,
I had that numb depression feeling again. Mm-hmm. Nothing excited me. I didn't look forward to anything. I didn't care about work. I didn't care about kickboxing. I didn't care about traveling, you know, which was something that I had absolutely, you know, loved to do every year or 2 years. You know, I would always take a big trip somewhere, crazy country in the globe. And I didn't care about any of it anymore. And I just felt weird. And, you know, I had brought it up to just my primary, you know, doctor at the time. And she was like, well, you know, that's not really my, you know, forte. So let me send you, you know, to a therapist that I recommend that takes your insurance, and maybe you guys can discuss it. So here we are, back in the same scenario of 1996. I'm sitting in a therapist's office, and at the time they had blamed it on a medication I was taking for ADHD. Mm-hmm. And they had said, well, you know, some of the side effects, you've been on that for 8 years, you know, that can cause some depression. And so I was like, okay. And I got off of that medication, and things just really things progressed from there. So then it went from the depression to, I noticed as soon as the hot water would hit me in the shower, like my legs, I could feel my legs swell. Mm. And I was like, well, that's weird. And once again, I blamed it on a medication that, you know, and they were like, edema is not a known side effect of that drug. And I was like, well, I don't want to take it. Something's happening. 2013, my husband and I are in a belated honeymoon in Italy, and my hair was falling out everywhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, we'd only been in this bed and breakfast for 12 hours, and my hair covered the bath mat. Right. And I was like, something's wrong. 2014, by this time I'd lost probably 50% of my hair, and this is when the weight gain started. And after that, it was gaining about 17 pounds a year. And the swelling, the inflammation, frequent urination, night sweats, horrific night sweats. And I'm thinking, God, you know, we need to tweak my hormones, you know, like all this stuff, you know, because I had, when I had originally gotten tested, we had found out that I had 0 testosterone. At the age of 38 years old, I had absolutely no free testosterone. And I was like, oh, okay, you know, so we'll give me a little testosterone. And yes, my hair grew back. I slept a little bit better, but it wasn't the answer. And that was just kind of everything that had just kept going. I kept going to doctors. We would find something, but it was never the answer. And things just got worse and worse and worse, you know, to the point that, you know, from 2017 to 2018, I had gained 35 pounds in 1 year, all fluid. And my doctor, like, you know, she's my nurse practitioner, she kind of looked at me and she was just like, you know, I want to help you so bad. And she was, I just don't know how. You know, she's like, your blood work just doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. Nothing. Your blood work looks fantastic compared to how you look. I don't understand what's happening. And that's just kind of how it was, you know, for basically from 2014 to 2018. Wow. And I was just like, well, okay, I don't know, you know, so I kept researching, and I'm going to do my own homework. And that was when I kind of had to, you know, realize what was happening to me, what was happening to my thyroid, my adrenals. And that's when I started, you know, learning, watching webinars, reading books and everything, because I thought I initially had a thyroid problem like the rest of my family.
Yeah. And that totally makes sense. Why wouldn't you? Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what things, the hair loss, the weight gain, you know, the fatigue, you know, thyroid, you know, and that is really what I thought it was.
Yeah. And then when did you put the pieces together? When did you start understanding and recognizing the underlying root cause of what was going on?
So this is like the craziest story, and every time I tell it, I almost question myself if it is even for real. But I had a friend on Facebook, and Facebook was actually notifying me that she was posting in the Healing Breast Implant Illness by Nicole group. I was not a member.
You weren't even a member, huh?
I'm not a member. And I'm like, what the heck is this? You know? So and I think it even allowed me to click on it and see her comment, like just weird. And I remember thinking to myself, I've got other friends who are in many different health groups, and it doesn't notify me that they're posting.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is she talking about? Removing her breast implants? Is she crazy? You know? And so I requested to join the group out of curiosity to find out what this is. And I think either I had just been accepted to join or I was in the process of waiting. And once again, this doesn't ever happen on Facebook anymore because now it's stories that's on there, but it was articles. It used to be like articles you may be interested in.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never clicked on the articles ever. And I just happened, it was 5:30 one morning and I was eating breakfast and I decided to click on the article and it happened to be about Crystal Hefner. And once again, it led me back to the Facebook group. And I was thinking, our food is what's causing autoimmune diseases, not breast implants. Like, I don't understand what these people are talking about. And then I just sat there and it became my obsession. I couldn't wait to come home from work, to get back on Facebook, to read more stories. And finally, about 6 weeks of doing this was when I went and told my husband, I was like, it's my boobs. My boobs are making me sick. And he was just like, well, they are a foreign object. And he didn't really say anything else because he knew I'd been obsessively researching a million things. So he wasn't really going to question this. And then within 6 weeks after, researching this, I called and made my appointment to get them out.
That's great.
And I cried all that weekend. I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the fact that I was scared because I had been so disappointed for 5 years now. We find something in blood work. We find something in some other weird test that I paid a whole lot of money to do. And it was never the answer. And here I was, I had spent over $25,000 at this time trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And here I'm about to drop another $7,000 to get my implants out. And what if it's not the answer?
I'm so glad you bring that up. That's not something that we have really discussed in another episode. And that is a very real fear because at this time, most of us have doctor hopped. I mean, we're talking, I did it all. I did the energy work, the acupuncturist, the homeopathic, the functional, the naturopathic doctor, the traditional doctor, the eye doctor. I was taking prescriptions, but my body did not like it was allergic to pretty much everything. So, I couldn't take prescriptions. I couldn't take a lot of the supplements. I couldn't eat food. And so when you get to that space where you're finally made the decision and your gut, I'm telling you right now, Carrie, you had angels around you on Facebook. You had Facebook angels. That's what you had that directed and guided you to this. And you just knew after a while, after hearing it, you're like, of course this makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
Chemist, right? You're probably going, yeah, why didn't I think about this before?
Once I saw that ingredient list and I saw all these hexane and hexanes and all these chemicals that I was familiar with from working in the lab, I was like, oh, wow, I never, and I think we learn about this kind of stuff in our own time. Here I had them for 22 years and I never heard about this. I thought it was something that was rare.
Yeah, me too. And then finally make the decision and you're like, but what if this doesn't help? And I just spent $7,000.
Yes.
I go under the knife. I have surgery. It's not an easy surgery. Okay.
No.
It's not. It's a pretty invasive surgery. And you and I both have issues. it sounds like even though the breast implants absolutely had a bearing on depression and things, I don't respond very well to anesthesia. It takes me a very, very long time to get it out of my system. It does cause me depression. It does cause some aftermath. So I'm signing up for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Crap, here I am going under the knife, but what if it still doesn't help me? Then I just spent $7 more grand and bought into this idea. And a lot of doctors are calling it a social media disease, right?
Right.
Just a bunch of cult weirdo ladies that are coming together and coming up with something that's not medically researched and validated, but that is in itself a lie. So yes, your feeling, emotional response and mental response is absolutely spot on in terms
of. And I was really fortunate that I did not have a doctor that treated me like garbage when I brought it up to her.
Oh, that
I had literally gone in there with boxing gloves on one day, and because in my blood work, my absolute eosinophils have been high since like 2014. Oh, well, it's allergies. Well, it kept getting higher. So finally, February of 2018, it was over 1,000. Whew. This is another angel path that I had taken, because the one person that I reached out to that was on my surgeon's Facebook group, I asked her what her symptoms were. Oh, I had high absolute eosinophils, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, what? So then it was like, oh my God, this makes total sense. I could be allergic to something in that second set of breast implants, because when I replaced them, I did replace them with gel. I had Mentor memory gels put in 2011.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if the shells are the same. I mean, as a chemist, I do, the shell has to be able to interact properly with the filling. A gel, substance is going to be completely different than a saltwater solution. So I don't know. I know that they're supposed to be maybe the same makeup, or but of course you can't research any of that on the internet. You can't really find anything. But I do truly feel that they are the same, maybe different.
Sure.
Concentrations of something, or whatever. But I may have became allergic to the saline ones, too, at the time too, because if we eat the same foods, we could sometimes get allergic, to things. Right. Your body's like, I don't want that anymore. Right. So, but it did make sense that this was a different, type of implant, and obviously I'm not allergic to silicone, or I would have died a long time ago.
Right.
But all it takes is one component in there that my body just doesn't like, and that's when I had realized, I was like, wow, that makes total sense. The swelling, because it looked like I got stung by a bee and I was allergic to a bee. And it just got so bad that even my friends were like, when they'd see me, they'd touch me. Carrie, oh my gosh, are you okay? And it was like, okay, well, people can't handle how I look, so I'm just not going to go out anymore. I'm not going to be social with my friends and, everything. And I was just, waiting for that explant to come. Yeah. Although I didn't know if I was going to make it, because the swelling was getting so bad.
Oh. So it sounds like you just blew up like a balloon almost, and just completely filled with water. Like
yeah, even my skin was shiny because it was so taut.
Wow.
Like you could just look at me and something wasn't right.
Yeah.
And of course I went to nephrologist and I went to cardiologist, to rule that out, and doesn't matter.
Yes, I do understand.
Doesn't matter.
So you finally make the appointment. You're going, you're still leery, you're still worried, but you go through with the surgery. Now what? Tell us what happened. Did you see anything right away? Or did
Yes. Yes. I was actually leaving the surgery center, and I had LASIK surgery on my eyes like in 2015, and I had read where women were saying that their vision improved and all this stuff. Well, I didn't know. I had 20/20 vision. My vision was perfect. But leaving the surgery center that day, I was in the car and I was like, oh! Like the color and the clarity was like I had LASIK yesterday. Oh. Like the day before. And I was like, wow, I didn't know my vision was an issue. Also, within 3 hours, you could see a vein in my foot. And if you saw my pictures, my foot looked like a 300-pound woman. Mm-hmm. So the next day, I go to my surgeon, and, she takes the bandages off and, presents me the implant, tells me her findings. And I'm telling her, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe, And she's like, that quick? Well, the bandage up here, she really mummifies you and really wraps you tight. And it was like a tube top. I had to keep pulling it up. And when she like went to go take that, she goes, oh, wait a minute. This is not supposed to look like this. She goes, I wrapped you tight. She goes, yeah, that's how much swelling you've lost just in 24 hours.
Wow. Who was your doctor, by the way? Because I'd like
Dr. Barnett.
Dr. Barnett.
In Sarasota, yes.
And interesting enough, we have interviewed her, and she will be at one of our episodes. So
she's wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's really nice to have a doctor who's passionate and really, really understands this and really believes in it.
Oh.
Because the day of my surgery, I was so swollen they couldn't find a vein to put my IV. And I had all these nurses, just frantically looking around, and they even poked it in my finger and everything. And I'm crying. And, the nurse anesthetist, she was like, is this why you're doing this today? Because she said, this swelling is alarming. And I just started crying. I was like, nobody can tell me why I look like this. So I have to remove my implants. I don't know what else to do. And so when I woke up from surgery, that same nurse had come up to me and she said, I don't ever really get involved with Dr. Barnett's patients, but she goes, I have asked her to give me an update on you, because she goes, I am genuinely, concerned for you. And she's like, and I really hope this is your answer.
That's awesome. So great. So you already know inflammation's going down. Well, in the water, at least the water retention, the swelling is going down. You're starting to see better. Tell us first of all, how long has it been since you had your explant? How many months are we out?
So it'll be, so it's 19 months.
19 months. Okay.
Yes.
So tell us the improvements you've seen since then. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, because you've got some good information about your thyroid and some different things. So tell us, what improvements have you seen?
So within 2 weeks, my night sweats had lessened a lot. My frequent urination was gone. And about 4 months out, we actually went to Universal Studios, and numbers were a really big issue for me to remember. And I actually remembered where we parked 7 hours later.
Wow.
Hat in the Hat, 569, or something like that, and I was like, I'm like, my one friend was like, wow, that's amazing. I go, you have no idea. Like,
your memory,
I started seeing
compromised, right? Your memory had
horribly, really been bad. Mm-hmm. Yes. And then I couldn't have a conversation with people without, I'd talk and I'd be all of a sudden just gone. And I'd be like, what was I talking about? And I couldn't retrieve it.
Yeah.
But the memory was a huge issue.
Yeah. So you're starting to get your memory back. You're really improving in these different ways. Are you feeling more energy? Are you feeling, less tired, less depressed, less?
I did. But things didn't, I didn't have these amazing after pictures, like what some of these people have with these eyes and, I dropped 20 pounds in 1 month.
No, I'm right there with you.
So for my sanity, I actually had to unfollow, some of the groups, not be a member, but just kind of unfollow them, because I couldn't be upset with how I was feeling. Mm-hmm. A lot of these women only had implants for 3 years or 12 years. We're talking more than half my life.
Yeah.
And, and I'm like, it's going to take a long time, for my body to forgive me. I have, I've really, done it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I do have the MTHFR gene mutation. So my healing, what could possibly take 2 years could now take 4.
Yeah.
And, and now I think 4 years is actually a good number because, in 4 months, I'm going to be going up on 2 years and things are very, very slow.
Yeah.
But they're happening.
Good.
And and I look back even how I am now compared to last April, and I'm a totally different person.
Yeah. It's almost really important, I think, that for those women, as they get explant, if you haven't embarked on this journey yet and you're listening, I encourage you to keep a little bit of a health journal and remind yourself as to how, even if it's a video journal on your phone or something like that, just to remind yourself how far you've come. Because I can get really into a space where I am hung up on the fact that my gut hurts today. It literally does. Today, my gut hurts. It doesn't feel so good. And I get frustrated because why isn't I healed? Why am I not doing well? But if I were to remember 6 months ago, you and I would not be having this interview. I would be laying in my bed, or I'd be laying in my backyard if it was warm enough, because I couldn't even function enough to have a conversation with another person.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to remind myself, and I think just a little health journal saying, hey, you know what, this is what I felt. Put all your symptoms or video, yourself before you go in for your explant, and then start noticing the progress. And then when you have that bad day, which you're going to have a bad day, I'm telling you right now.
Yes, you are.
You can look at that journal and say, but yes, look how far I've come.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, your feet don't look like they're on a 300-pound woman anymore, right?
No. And even when you look at my pictures, and that's why I've been very vocal, and that's why I have done some other interviews, and I do have the Instagram page. But when you look at my pictures, my nose was literally spread out to here because I had so much fluid in my face, almost like women have when they're pregnant.
Yeah.
And, it took a good 7 months to see even remotely a change. So that's why when you look at my pictures, you'll see a few days before explant, you'll see all the way up to 1 year. Even the coloring on my face changed. That's not makeup that made me more whiter looking. I didn't have all the redness and inflammation that wasn't even aware I had till I looked at pictures.
Yeah.
And then you see me, in February when, from August until February, I had dropped, like 20 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hoping, that the weight loss, slowly starts to, come off, that this water, starts to come off. But even so, I'm doing so much better than I was a year ago, definitely much better than I was 2 years ago before my explant.
Yeah.
This was definitely life-changing.
So if you were to give a woman that is going on this journey, has recently discovered and put the pieces together, they're moving towards explant, and is there anything that you have learned that you feel would be good information for you to pass on to that woman who was like you 19 months ago, 20 months ago, that gathered some information on Facebook, but if you could take her by the hand and say, okay, this is something that I would have liked to have known way back when. Is there anything that you can think of that might be something that you'd want to share with her?
I mean, knowledge is power, and I know that because I was very scared, I just drowned myself in information from that April when I made the decision to explant, and I had to wait till August to explant. I had to wait 5 months. And the fear that I had, every day I watched a YouTube video, every day I read another story, and I just constantly drowned myself in that. And it was just like, okay, the more I keep hearing this, like, this is just not a rare thing. This is something that keeps happening. And, and I love to help women. I definitely had, some women, contact me saying, hey, I've even helped people with surgeons and, and everything. And I definitely truly believe when you see that meme that always goes around, that the last part of healing is helping others.
Yes.
And that is absolutely true, because once I went public with my story, which took a year, it was like, oh, I mean, it was like a whole new person came out of me just in 24 hours.
Yeah.
You know, because I was just like, oh, thank God it's off my chest, literally. And, you know, and I could tell others what happened and be okay with it. Of course, I was afraid of, you know, nasty things people had to say. But to be honest, I haven't had one negative
me
comment.
too. And I think it's important for you to take your, you know, have purpose out of your pain and create, you know, that your mess can become your message, right? I believe that it is incredibly healing to be able to share that and pay it forward. You know, and as Brene Brown says, is that shame is a killer. So if we are looking at our story and our journey in a way that is shameful, not the guilt. Guilt is actually a good emotion that helps us to make better choices in the future. But when we take it upon ourselves that because of the choices that we made, now all of a sudden there's something wrong with us and we are shameful of it. When we tell our story, it loses the shame. It takes the shame right out of the story. And all of a sudden the power of that shame goes away. And so I'm safely assuming that when you shared your story, all of a sudden that went away. There's no more hiding behind it. It's now paying it forward to the next person who needs to hear your voice, needs to hear your story, needs to understand how they can reclaim their health too. And now we're banding together and saying, okay, women and sisters, we're now going to help you also, because we never want another woman to feel the way that we felt, right? Like I look at the days where I said, I'm in a nightmare that I cannot wake up from. And understanding that here I am, a woman that is speaking to you, that has the health and the vitality, that can sleep at night, that doesn't have debilitating pain in her back. And it's time for us to step it up.
Yeah.
Band together, right? And say,
absolutely,
we're done with this.
That's what this is about. And you know, and it's about, and I am happy that even, you know, of course I had friends with breast implants, but they don't want to hear it. And that's fine. Like I said, you come in your own time.
Yes.
This is what happened to me. I'm just letting you know that this happened. I have had a lot of friends tell me, because I do have friends that still got them in 1996 or 1997, and they still have those same sets. And I have had them tell me, thanks to you, I'm not going to replace them.
Yeah.
I am now terrified of, you know, something happening. And I'm like, okay, that's good.
That's a good start. We like that.
That's good. You know, I'm like, that's fine. You know, you do what you have to do, but I just want you to think about what that has been doing inside of your body for the last 23 years.
Yeah. Yep.
Do you even remember how you felt when you were 19 and 20, you know, to even recognize the symptoms? Because I've had people say, oh, I'm just going to get implants, and if I have issues, I'll remove them.
Yeah.
I challenge you to recognize the issues, because they mimic aging.
Yeah.
You know, if you get a food allergy, you're going to blame your breast implant. You know, you pee all the time, you're going to blame your breast implant.
Yeah.
No, there's symptoms that are not highly recognizable to be associated with that.
Yeah. Well, the last thing that I want to ask you is about the thyroid, because you had mentioned that you have some information that you've gathered about thyroid, and it's very, very common for women to have thyroid Hashimoto's, issues with their thyroid, because the root cause was their breast implants, and
it actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, for me, I think my thyroid issue came from the fact that my adrenals were so fatigued. Why did my adrenals get so fatigued? Well, am I stressed on, you know, everyday life? Maybe, but it also internal stresses, you know, cause that. So when you have a foreign object inside of your body that your body is fighting every single day, that is an internal stress. So I was only 30 years old when I started having the insomnia symptoms, and my adrenals started to take a crash. And then it wasn't until 2014 that my hair was falling out, and you know, luckily the testosterone helped grow that back. But is that normal to be that young and now having to have hormone replacement?
Yeah.
You know, so it kind of makes sense that a lot of the thyroid issues or possibly the Hashimoto's issues could possibly just stem from having bad adrenals, because your adrenals are stressed, because the adrenals and the thyroid, they're buddies.
Yeah.
They want to help each other out. And when one tanks, and the other one's going to compensate, and then that one can tank too.
Yeah.
So I had just read a lot of books and watched a lot of webinars. And, when you go to the endocrinologist or regular doctor, they're only testing your TSH and possibly, if you're lucky, your free T4. And that was when I started realizing that there is a whole panel that needs to be done. And luckily I had, really good doctors, and they didn't argue with me when I said, hey, I need to have a reverse T3, but I mean, if you're getting your thyroid checked, you need to have your TSH, your free T4, your free T3, and your reverse T3 done.
Okay.
And and then if you want to have your, obviously your, Hashimoto's antibodies, tacked in there too. But they all tell a story.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you discovered, is your thyroid at this point doing better?
Perfect.
Yay!
I am on medication. But my levels they're not in range. They are optimal, because there's a big difference.
And look at your hair. I'm
yeah.
More hair. I'm so
excited. And after my explant, I did notice my hair got thicker.
Good.
I went to go get my hair cut like a year ago, and she's like, "What's going on with your hair?" And I go, "Why is it falling out again?" And she's like, the PTSD is real. And she's like, "No, you got all these baby hairs everywhere." And I was like, "Oh, she's like, and coincidentally, they're about 6 inches long. And she goes, we approximately grow about 6 inches a year." And I go, isn't that hilarious that it was a year ago that I removed my breast implant?
Yeah.
That looked like I possibly had 1 year of hair growth.
That is fantastic news. Well, Carrie, thank you so much for all your help, all your time today. Is there any last piece of advice or something you'd like to share with the listeners before we wrap this up? Is there anything that you're like, oh, I just have this on my heart or my mind, and I want to make sure I say this before we end?
I just, people just need to recognize, that this is not a mental issue. This is something that is real. If you're thinking about breast implants, please make an educated decision and don't just assume that they're safe. Don't listen to a doctor. I'm hoping that people, are, listening. I love to help women. I do have an Instagram, HA Chemist, ban the booze, with underscores under each, word, and reach out to me. I love to help. I have women message me all the time, and I've even had women from Australia contact me and ask me if I could help them find out if their breast implants were recalled, and I love it. I love to help people.
Fantastic. Okay. So we'll make sure that we put those links in the, the show notes so that individuals can reach out to you if they would like to talk to you. Is there an email or anything that they can reach you at?
It's my name, Carrie Dyjak at gmail.com. Okay. And so if they want to reach out to me that way, or they can also, find me on Facebook. I do have a very detailed story of when I did go public with my story, like back, I think it was July 25th. And that is a public, post if people are more interested in more of what I'm, talking about in detail with, some of my symptoms. Everybody has symptoms to an extreme, and I've seen definitely worse than mine, where women actually had swelling of the brain, but I do feel that mine was pretty life-threatening and a little bit different than, other women's.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I so appreciate you sharing your story, sharing the victory, the victory at the end, where you're starting to reclaim your health, and the fact that there's a different perspective here of your background of being a chemist and understanding what these chemicals can potentially do in your life. And so with that being said, Carrie, thank you so much for your time. today. I believe that this episode will help a lot of women on their journey to their own either explant or even after their explant of having hope that things are going to turn around for them. So thanks again.
I hope so. And it was a pleasure to meet you and speak with you today.
Absolutely. And for our listeners, thank you very much for joining us today. And we can't wait for you to join us on another episode of Killer Boobies, Unraveling Breast Implant Illness.
Thank you for listening. Spread the word by subscribing, liking, and sharing the Killer Boobies podcast today. You could be the person who helps someone reverse their pain and suffering and reclaim their health today.